Hey there, it's Rob Paone, and welcome to the Proof of Talent podcast. Today, I have a great interview for you. It is with Duke Kim of The Giving Block. And this conversation was pretty wide-ranging. Duke has been in the industry now for, I think, a little bit over 3 years at this point in time, has made a couple different stops within the industry in his career, and has kind of decided that, hey, this is the place I want to spend the rest of my career, as I think a lot of us have made that decision as well. And I think you're really going to enjoy a variety of the points that he made about his interview process, his journey, and the advice that he has to job seekers within the crypto industry as well. Before we hop into that interview, if you are interested in a new opportunity within the crypto space, if you are also perhaps hiring for your company, feel free to reach out to Proof of Talent. It's Proof of Talent podcast, makes sense, right? Feel free to reach out to Proof of Talent. I will put links below in the YouTube and podcast descriptions. If you are interested in either sending us your resume, we're happy to try and do our best to help you find that next role in your career, or if you're hiring as well. Without further ado, let's hop into that conversation with Duke. Duke, thanks so much for taking the time to join the Proof of Talent podcast. I really appreciate it. One of the first questions I always like to kick things off with is, what were you doing professionally before you started working in the crypto industry?
Oh, that's a great opening question. So I have a pretty much a TradFi background. Born and bred as a corporate bond trader, derivatives trader. Kind of washed out in like the early 2010s. So I ended up at Bloomberg around 2016 as an account manager, really working with the guys I traded with and traded for over the years. Spent about 2 years there, and knew that I wanted a little bit of something different. And I'll get into it as we continue on the pod today.
Yeah. As far as actually kind of making that step from Bloomberg into the crypto industry, was there anything that prompted that decision at all?
Yeah. So perfect segue. So when the first day that I joined Bloomberg, again, working with, guys that I've traded with, old colleagues, really, it felt like a homecoming, to a large degree, getting to stay in the capital markets ecosystem. But literally day one, was introduced to a friend of a friend, and the guy turns to me and says, the best part about working here, and this, certainly isn't meant to bash on Bloomberg, but was that, they'll never fire you. This is just a great place to hang out. And at that time, I think maybe like 34, 35, way too young to really ride off into the sunset. So at that point, I knew, look, great company, tons of professional advancement opportunity. You can learn a lot. You can stay connected if you're a capital markets person. But at the same time, I knew, from day one almost, that I was going to at some point seek out another opportunity, just given, that I just don't want to be that comfortable in any one place.
Yeah, it's a great point. And thinking about like where I've been sometimes career wise too, ending up at large companies. Like I've kind of worked at some smaller companies. I've worked at some larger companies kind of prior to starting Proof of Talent. And when I worked at the larger companies, I was at LinkedIn, I was at Oracle, like they were great companies to work at. But one of the things that always kind of bothered me is like, even if I was in a sales role, and even if I absolutely crushed it, the impact that made was so absolutely minuscule in the grand scheme of things. It was hard for me to find any like real motivation on that front.
Yeah, fully agree. And maybe I wasn't planning on, confessing this, but I grew up, both a debate nerd and a band camp nerd. And I'd left band and like marching band in high school specifically because same reason, right? The band does well, you get a trophy that you share, and the director obviously, I guess, takes it home or whatever he or she does. But when I started doing competitive speech and debate in high school, it was, hey, I get the trophy for myself, and then that it just hits different, right? It was just like you have an outsized impact, and you really get to reap those rewards, which is also why I think I enjoy working for even smaller startups, right? Just to really have an outsized impact on what I can do and bring to the table professionally.
So you were at Bloomberg and were there for a few years, and maybe didn't want to kick your feet up and ride off into the sunset, for better, for worse. But the next step in your career was, I believe, with a company in the crypto and blockchain space, Lukka. How did you wind up there?
Sure. So a little bit of I wouldn't say nepotism, but it was a happy coincidence. So my wife shared office space with one of the original VC backers of Lukka. Saw the team continue to grow, had mentioned them over the time, and then said, look, they're looking to expand into, they have real customers. I think they just closed a B round. And so they needed someone to really build a relationship management capability and to work with their existing customers, and help upsell them. And given what I was doing at Bloomberg as a territory manager, it sort of made sense as an easy transition. Connected with, at the time, the chief revenue officer, who ended up becoming one of my very close friends, and introduced me into the crypto ecosystem. So easy process from that regard. But in terms of really winning the hearts and minds of that team, a little bit tougher, right? Given that I came from a very TradFi background, had moved around a little bit, maybe similar to you, Rob. Ex-trader, was a regulatory consultant, was at Bloomberg as a relationship manager, and to really proving to this team, hey, this is exactly what I want to do, even though I was coming slightly from left field. But really, working to, and I would love to, kind of dive into the final round interview story, if you give me that time, to explain how I really got the team to believe in me and take that first bet as the first hire that was really, kind of non-executive, non-technical, in building the Lukka team.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something I'd like to hop into, because I do think that there are a lot of individuals that are interviewing in the space, and maybe the parallels between what they're doing right now and what the job that they want or the job that they're interviewing for is not always crystal clear. So I'd love to hear how you maybe were able to end up getting that role in the final interview, for sure.
Sure. So to start, it was pretty funny. Again, working with my colleague Jeremy Drain, who became a very good friend of mine. First conversation was, hey, have you taken a look at the job description? Do you think you fit it? And I said, what job description? This is informational. My wife connected us. I didn't know that there was a JD available for this thing. And that kind of spoke to really like how quickly startups can grow, how nimble you have to be. So we get through that part, go through the process, explain, here's how I've been an account manager, a relationship manager for big banks and consulting organizations, really being that client liaison. But the space was new to me. So Lukka, at the time, was primarily focused on subledger software for fund administrators, for hedge funds, looking for tax and accounting reporting, basically a big tax calculator. A lot of words I had to Google. I literally, sat into the role that I had to Google what the hell a fund administrator was, what they do, what our function was for them in the technical stack. But ultimately, from helping podcast listeners here, your audience, Rob, is really understanding where you fit as an employee, or as kind of building that team. So, for me at that time, again, I was about mid 30s, first kid. So I didn't want to necessarily go to a startup that was three guys in a garage, a little bit too much career risk for me. Likewise, I didn't want to go to LinkedIn and be part of, 20,000 employees. So ended up here again, I was roughly about employee 20-ish, closed a B round, and they had customers that were about to tick over their 1 year mark. So again, needing that relationship management to take care of them, to identify upsells. Through the interview process, really, again, learning on the fly what they were doing, how I could fit in and build, was really the key to success, right? I think as I've gotten older and moved around in my career, really understanding and coming to grips with my strong points and my weaknesses. Where I'm really strong is being a great generalist, being a great idea generator, and really building on the fly. I'm slightly less useful as an execution guy, or a process person. That said, having a consulting background, I can explain to others how to build a process, and that was really critical. And the final thing that really moved the needle in my favor was actually just attention to detail. So, at the time, as a we'll call it a relationship manager, account manager, one of the things was, again, building a process for taking care of all the clients, and then also figuring out status reports, really the boring stuff. Are you satisfied as a customer? How are we doing with, the data that we're preparing for you? All of those things. So I prepared in my final presentation pitch kind of mock-ups of what I would, create once I got the job. And the last piece, attention to detail thing that I had done was mimicked as close as I could their font, their corporate font, as well as their branding and their coloring. And they weren't yet at a stage in their company where they had this necessarily locked in. This is the Pantone, this is the font we paid for, but I could, kind of fudge it. So I put that in the PowerPoint deck that I presented them, and the chief operating officer and the founder were just stunned that someone would have taken, the extra 10 minutes inside of the PowerPoint. So you're talking about, an inch by an inch in terms of what a fake report would look like. But hey, it was the right color, the right font. I'd Googled their existing clients and put put those in the deck and the material and saying, this is what your status reporting would look like. This is what your CSAT surveys would look like. And just taking that extra 2 minutes really blew them away and said, hey, this is the guy that we don't know if it's going to work, but he's probably the one that's most likely to make it work. Let's go ahead and give him a shot. And the rest is history.
That's a great story. There was a little tweet thread I put out yesterday about interviewing, and there were, I think, 5 things that I was talking about, just interview prep. And I feel like interview prep as a job seeker is one of those things where it's like such a high ROI on your time to actually improving your chances. As a person, you can obviously find new jobs, you can build experiences studying in the background. There's a lot of things you can do to make yourself like a better candidate per se. But a lot of those things are very time consuming. But when it comes down to once you actually have the interviews, is doing that extra little tiny bit of effort makes such a huge difference. And we've seen that both for people we work with at Proof Talent, but even just interviewing people to be recruiters on our team. There were a couple different scenarios where even one of the guys in the team sent video thank you notes after every interview. And it was between him and another person. The other person was really good too, but just that extra little bit probably took him 2 minutes out of his day. And we're thinking about, all right, this person or that person, well, somebody was going ahead and doing a little bit of extra effort, and that type of thing pushed him over the finish line versus somebody else. And I think is a really good story that reemphasizes that for sure.
Thank you. And I mean, and actually even, going back to it, from a grind perspective, right? All of, job seeking, networking, it is a grind. I mean, actually, so I worked at Bloomberg from, 2016 to 2018, was first, rejected in 2015, right? Working with a team, they ended up going with a person that I was a corporate bond trader. They wanted ultimately someone with more municipal bond experience. As boring as that may be, they said, hey, this is what we need right now, but obviously stay in touch, keep it warm. So checking in, quarter after quarter until it happened is clutch. Even here at the Giving Block, the gentleman that runs a lot of our operations and kind of fund flows was my operations guy from B of A, about almost a dozen years ago, right? Stayed in touch, wasn't able to. I don't think I've ever had a beer with him. He worked in a completely different office. So we're not, old bar buddies or friends or anything like that, but we were just, great professional contacts. And he'd been just pinging for over a year, maybe 2 years, just, hey, Duke, if you ever bump into something in the world of crypto that might be able to make use of my operations background, please let me know, right? Anywhere I'd go, it's like, Duke, you talk to hedge funds. If they need, ops, let me know. And finally it worked, right? And he wasn't, annoying about it, but it was just, building and keeping that professional relationship and staying, I wouldn't say, top of mind all the time, but always back there, right? Just always knowing,
Yep.
Hey, this is a guy that's ready to come off the bench, just looking for a home. And that's been, critical, I think, to my success and to those around me.
Totally. When you were getting into, or when you were interviewing for Lukka, were you specifically, I know you mentioned, it sounded like from a company size wise and just kind of like a risk factor scale, like you said, Series B-ish company, some traction, product market fit, kind of the employee size you were looking for, all those types of things. Was that the most appealing part to you, or were you also kind of simultaneously interested in the crypto and blockchain industry in particular, or was that just kind of like an ancillary benefit of that opportunity?
Wow, I haven't really thought about that. So, I definitely fell down the rabbit hole. I guess investing, at the time what I felt was significant amounts of money and time in probably late 2016, 2017, as that first bull run up to to 20K hit. Um, so felt that desire from a professional and size perspective. I think that was right. So ideally, if I could have gone to, or I guess if the crypto and blockchain piece were out of the equation with Lukka, but the employee kind of company size was right, still would have been attractive to me, I think. I mean, I'm about early 40s. So I grew up in the time of Web 1.0, the tech boom from the early 90s, 2000s. And so even when I went to college, I didn't think I would graduate. I figured I'd go for a year, find my way into Silicon Valley, be join some tech startup as a sales guy, relationship person. Um, didn't work out. Ended up with a philosophy degree, and thankfully found a job after that. But but
It wasn't
what was
helpful.
really always attractive to me, I guess, leaving, we'll call it full TradFi as an ex-bond trader, throughout my career arc was really coming closer and closer to home, with regard to who I am. And I always say, I got to finally let my freak flag fly. I can never pronounce that right. Where you work on a Wall Street desk, everyone dresses the same, blue shirt, slightly high cropped now kind of slacks, right? Same Ferragamo loafers, same Patagonia vest. Everyone looks exactly the same, and I just really chafed at that. I didn't come from,
You're wearing a
my
blue shirt
parents
right
aren't.
now, Duke.
Yeah, yeah. My parents aren't. Yeah, unfortunately. It's cold in my office. It's just my parents didn't come from, Wall Street. They didn't connect me with people. I grew up in a small suburb outside of Dallas. And so not that I had a chip on my shoulder, but at the same time, just didn't feel like I fit in. And so as I've gotten older, as I've worked for, smaller and smaller companies, really come to be more comfortable in my own skin. And sure, some of that's probably some sort of um, unpacked, need for therapy on my side. But the bigger picture is just like, hey, it can be comfortable, get to really have an outsized impact on these organizations. And just so happens, this, current juncture working at the Giving Block, really getting to align, my philanthropic intentions, my need to do social good, as well as staying in really crypto, as well as capital markets, working with, kind of traditional organizations to make their way into crypto and blockchain.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you've been at a couple different you've had a couple different stops prior to the Giving Block, between now and Lukka. How has the kind of journey within the crypto space been for you? Because it seems like really since that Lukka point in time, you've kind of made this industry, it looks like the focal point of your career. So I'm kind of curious how that has, going from maybe just trading the asset a little bit, trading some of these assets a little bit in 2016, 2017 to kind of focusing, that, like you said, your career and kind of the, the future outlook on it with, with a couple different companies.
Yeah. So post Lukka, and this was, really I think the challenge, or sort of the coming to Jesus moment, came for me when COVID hit. So as COVID was coming stateside in early 20, we were at the time at Lukka just kind of at a crossroads in terms of funding, headcount decisions, et cetera. And so I was part of, a round of cuts in kind of Q1 2020. And I wasn't sure, and I didn't know if I had a network strong enough at that time to stay crypto. So, had a conversation with my wife. We're actually expecting our second child at that time as well, saying, look, I would love to stay in crypto, love, the energy, the people I get to connect with and work with, but financially, is it the right move for us? If I were to get a job at a big company, I was talking to, we'll call it, Salesforce, larger other organizations, that could make use of the 2 years of experience I had in the world of crypto, but also again, TradFi, regulatory consultant, et cetera. What does it look like? So I applied to everything. I was actually in the final rounds of a company that was, I thought, interesting because, for all the wrong reasons, actually, because it was backed by a growth equity firm out of Boston, but they sold lifecycle warranty management software for retail and heavy industry, which is super boring sounding, because it honestly was. So before we started the podcast, we were talking about grills. So one of their customer success stories was, hey, we built Weber grills relationship and warranty life cycle postcards, because Weber was selling directly to like Lowe's and Home Depot. The company never knew that it was actually Rob purchasing the grill, couldn't find you, couldn't identify, couldn't you upsell warranty, new great new great scrubbers, etc. So they built the software around doing that kind of really boring stuff, but wildly, very juicy margins, really great company. And again, because they're backed by growth equity, I figured it would be a good opportunity for me to learn the ropes on the investing side as well. Ultimately, their head of sales didn't want to work with me because he didn't think he'd be able to keep me long enough to really get the juice out of it. So, I ended up taking one of those like aptitude tests, and he said, "Look, you're probably not. I mean, not that I'm anything special, but he's like, you're probably one of the smarter guys I've ever interviewed for this role, because I'm dealing with warranty factory guys. And there's a very different sales cycle and sort of persona that goes to this industry. You're not really it, but I know you'd be good at the job." But he was also really afraid, and I couldn't sell him on this, thankfully, that I would not leave after COVID was over, or that crypto kind of came back. So thankfully, he said, "Love to keep in touch. Not going to take you." At that point, leaning heavily on the crypto network, got connected to a couple of trading firms, a couple of crypto lending platforms. Ended up joining Celsius in about September of 2020. So just a few months of kind of, I'll call it nail biting, a lot of interviews, a lot of conversations with exchanges and trading firms, et cetera. Ultimately, able to make a new home for myself and stay crypto. And since then, I think to your point, I don't think I'll ever leave, for better or for worse. And as long as the ecosystem is here, I'm dedicated to it. Want to continue to build it in any way that I can.
It's interesting that you said you had those kind of challenges basically post Lukka, finding that next opportunity, because I do think that there are, with what happened in the past 5 months or so with the layoffs across the board, I think there that has been a challenge for a lot of people. Is you had these massive companies, the Coinbases of the world, where they laid off a pretty significant 1,500 plus people. And I think that's relatively true across a number of different organizations within the space and just wider tech in general. But I do think that has been a debate for some people, is like, hey, do I stay in this industry? Is there enough opportunity here still? And I think part of that is just a crisis of like, we're in this bear market and people get disillusioned. Although, again, like we're in a greater tech bear market as well at this point in time. But I think there's always kind of that disillusionment. But then it is at this point in time, in some cases, harder to get a job in the space than it was a year ago, for sure. So good to hear that story. That like, if I were to look at your resume and look at your LinkedIn, I would have just kind of assumed you've had an easy go of it. You got your first job in crypto, and then you've been able to kind of end up where you are through maybe a relatively easy process. But hearing that it was a challenge, and you were considering opportunities outside of the space, but ended up deciding to stay in. It's definitely I think good for those people that might be considering the opportunities outside but not so sure about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to add to that, still always difficult, right? I mean, even when I was looking for new work and even applying to existing clients of Lukka, and then kind of just building and really leaning on that network, it was tough, right? It was COVID. Bitcoin had touched, I think, probably 4K, right? People were nervous, but then I thought 18 months prior, there were a number of startups that had raised in BTC and ETH through the 2017 bull run, and had honestly, pardon my French, piss poor treasury management, right? So number of groups that said, look, we've raised tons and tons of ETH and we kept it in ETH, but you pay your bills and your your liabilities are all dollar denominated. There was a mismatch there, and I think we're still learning lessons. I think the crypto is fascinating from that regard, that the cycle is violent and it's quick, but it also just speaks to how quickly the space is growing and maturing, right? So in just a number of years, again, 2017, 2018, those hedge funds that launched really had no idea what they're doing. It was two kids that bought a bunch of Bitcoin in their college dorm room, had a 50,000% return and said, look at us, we can now accept, LP money. All the LPs have the same last names as the GPs, and there was no concept of risk management. And very slowly that started getting layered in. There, the hedge funds that launched in 2018 that are here now are the ones where risk management was top of mind. Treasury management was top of mind for these startups. We're still seeing that. So yeah, bear market is tough, but there are a number of people, yourself included, right, on the kind of Twitterverse that are saying, look, bear markets are for building. And even if you can't get that job right now, stay in your, relatively comfy wherever else you're working, build the network, build that next opportunity for yourself by just grinding. We're some people are kind of just waiting it out, but the market will expand again. We'll go back to hiring, full force. And I think for the people that have their wherewithal, even if you're not yet in the space, but you're just right outside of it, and really continuing to say, look, this is more than money. This is more than just I want to join this sexy sounding startup, but I'm really genuinely passionate about what XYZ company is doing. That create your own destiny, right? Create that magic, and it will happen.
Yeah, really, really good points. Where you're at now, so you are at now the Giving Block. How did you wind up to your current destination? Would love to hear that story.
Sure. So I guess I've known the team since their founding in 2018. So when I was at Lukka, we were launching a data product that would value crypto from a GAAP and IFRS perspective. And so I'd heard about the Giving Block, had seen what they do, and so the Giving Block, for those of y'all that are unaware, they enable nonprofits to receive cryptocurrency donations. We work with about 2,000 nonprofits globally. To fundraise crypto, to accept that crypto, we process that for them, and work with them to fundraise and to campaign using crypto as not just a donatable asset, but also a donor demographic to reach into. So back to the topic at hand. So I'd reached out to one of the co-founders back in 2018 saying, look, we're about to launch this value product, and we could I would love to put the valuation of the crypto that you donated on the gift receipt. And then the team said, can't do it, not interested. I told them it's free. We haven't launched the product yet. I just want my logo on something, help me out. Turned out there's a regulatory rule around, not being able to do that. Great. So just kept in touch with the team since then. Always loved, obviously, what they're doing, because they really do stand for social good and helping others change the world. And if I take actually a slightly further rewind, at the end of my tenure at Bloomberg, one of the last things I did was sort of an unofficial betting pool around the closing price of Bitcoin for 12/31/2017. And so, if you work on Wall Street, right, it's non-farm payrolls. It's really betting on anything. CPI prints, non-farms, unemployment rolls, anything you possibly could. And when I got my way onto the trading floor, I was just an overpaid, undereducated MBA. So didn't know anything, but I could just run, sports betting pools all day long. And that's, that was my first value proposition for a lot of the people that I got to work with. So I built at Bloomberg kind of the same thing. Said, hey, look, everyone throw in, X dollars. Whoever gets closest to the closing price of Bloomberg's Bitcoin price at the end of the year, you get 50% of the pot. The other half goes to Toys for Tots. Raised maybe $600 or something like that. Felt good. Make the donation, and then lo and behold, I get to work at the Giving Block. So just over a year ago, we had just sold a crypto trading desk, looking for a new opportunity at that time, and actually sending the co-founders a couple of different referral candidates for the job that I ultimately took at the Giving Block, which was running crypto partnerships. They had reached out and said, look, we actually would prefer just to talk to you directly if it all makes sense to you. Would love to explore that opportunity. And I just jumped at it. I mean, it made sense on a personal level. My youngest daughter, who was a COVID baby, has some pretty significant medical issues, and so I think it's really opened up my heart, my eyes, and really just deepened the empathy for, hey, people need help. They all, everyone needs help. How can you help? So it really aligned, socially for me. And then again, getting to stay in crypto, getting to really still talk to, capital markets participants. It really just checked all the boxes that I really wanted out of life, honestly. And I get to be fully remote, working out of my home office in Tampa, and so my wife said, if it makes you happy, go for it. And so I went for it.
Awesome. Yeah, it's always great when something checks those boxes that you're really looking for. I think those are, at least for me, when I'm thinking about, not that I'm thinking about a new role right now, but like as I've thought about things, or even just constructing like my role as like the founder of a company, it's like I like being remote. I want to build around those types of elements, and you being able to kind of construct those things, and then working in a space that you find to be fulfilling from a charitable perspective, but also within the industry that you like, I think is great. Like for me, I love working in crypto. I love the opportunity to speak with people involved in the space all day, but I also like the kind of service component of helping people find opportunities and find jobs in the space, and helping those companies that are hiring to build their organizations as well. So like for me, it's kind of the perfect marriage on my end. So cool to hear that you found that for yourself.
Yeah, and I mean, I again, really appreciate what you do for those trying to break into the ecosystem, for those trying to grow the ecosystem, finding the right candidates and the right people. Um, on a personal level, as a trader, right, you kind of live by the sword, die by the sword. So, I take the job search very seriously, and trying to, help people find a good home very seriously, because I've been fired before, right? I've had the hard talks with HR and managers. Um, Crazy enough, I got let go from the last bank I traded for the day before I flew out for my honeymoon. Which is
Tough.
sort of tough. So I remember pinging my wife and saying, "Hey, I know we're flying out tomorrow, but if you want to grab brunch before we go, I am totally free and available to do so." And but it was obviously hopefully I think it ended up for the best, but it took a while. And ever since then, right, it's like you said, really working to help people find really their professional home. I think COVID, for better or for worse, did open up people's eyes to, hey, I don't just want a job. I really want an opportunity. I really want to help build something, and align themselves with real mission. As a trader,
Yep.
the best thing I could say is that I don't fire people. I don't lever up a company and leave them saddled with debt. I just help insurance money managers really find yield opportunities, which is neither good nor bad, but now able to proactively have a positive impact on people's lives, is important to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thinking about somebody who might be looking to get an opportunity, I think there's been a lot of kind of actionable advice thus far, but is there any specific advice that you would give to somebody who is trying to start a career in the crypto or Web3 space at this point in time?
Sure. So I think obviously it's have a real interest. Besides, I think I can make money trading a shit coin, right? It's what do you really like? Having a real heart to heart internally, or I guess just a heart, in terms of what am I good at? What can I do? What do I bring to the table? And then from a concrete perspective, and I think we touched on it earlier, is where am I comfortable in terms of kind of company size, funding rounds, where are you as a human, right? So, my last stop when I was at the lending platform, worked with a lot of young people that, went fully remote, fully nomadic, and they could just take flyers on the next career moves that they wanted to do, fully unencumbered, right? They've got two duffel bags and a shitty minivan. They can do whatever they want, right? Certainly individuals are completely in a different position. Funny enough, when I joined Lukka, the management team, or sort of that level above me, right below the founders, where we had three, and we kind of pitched this too, as in terms of my sale, and saying like, we're going to be around as a company because three of the people that were running the organization all had their first kids in college. So from a backs to the wall, we're gonna make this thing work. We will be around. That was kind of the pitch, right? It's you work with us because we're not fly by night, because we've got kids in college, and it was sort of, and not to be flippant, right? But it was
Yep.
really meant to say, hey, look, we're really committed and dedicated to making this thing successful. And when I went to go recruit and hire out, it's like, hey, well, we were 20 when I joined, we're 40, we're 60, we're 80. And then you started accumulating different profiles of candidates, just based on your size, based on where you are in funding, et cetera. Even at the Giving Block, we were actually interviewing a young woman who was about to leave a major bank to join us on the institutional team. And we made the announcement that we had just been acquired by a public company. We were acquired by Shift4. It's an integrated payments platform, several thousand employees. And it was, I hate using the word interesting, but it was kind of fascinating to see her shift in demeanor or interest in the company, because for her it was, hey, I wanted to leave this really big organization where, again, you could have a knockout year. Does it really move the needle at an organizational level? No. To joining a startup at the time with 50-ish, 60 employees, awesome. Oh wait, if I take the opportunity now, I'm back to a big public company. Do I want that? And ultimately, she decided, I don't want to continue the conversation, but it made a lot of sense, right? And it was just where you are as a person, seek out those types of companies that really fit. Because I think professional happiness is critical, right? It is super important to your success as well.
Yeah, self-awareness, I feel like, is so crucial just in so many avenues of life, but especially when you're trying to decide what you want to do career-wise. Obviously, a career is a big portion of what you spend your day and weeks doing, and having the ability to be like introspective and be like, all right, this is actually what I like. This is what I'm good at. This is what I feel like would make me happy, and also would make me would add value to a company, or I would be a good fit there. And kind of knowing that, figuring that out. I think it's the same thing on a company hiring end too. Like, there are a lot of companies that just want to hire people and they have no idea. They don't have the self-awareness to know who they want to hire, how they want to hire. And I think it's kind of the same thing really on both ends, but having that ability to be introspective and kind of know where you'd be a good fit and why you'd want to be a good fit there, and making decisions based upon that. Like you said, maybe the woman you were interviewing with, looking for that smaller opportunity, and whether or not an acquisition from a big company that you guys went through actually made you guys feel like a big company, I have no idea, but I guess the risk to her wasn't worth it. So, always good to have that ability to kind of think through things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I would, even just to finish on that thread also, just as companies continue to grow and mature, right, they do need different types of candidates, right? So, hey, we're, internally at our company now, we're at a stage where we're hiring project managers, right? And people to build like a PMO functionality internally. So even folks that aren't, necessarily blockchain or crypto native can still get into startups, can still get into the world of crypto with their existing skill set. They just have to make sure that they align with, the company in terms of their maturity and where they are sort of on their journey, where it makes sense. Again, I think I'm a pretty great early stage employee. I'm a really crappy employee 2000, like just not going to be a great fit for anyone there. And likewise, other people are going to be the exact opposite. So to your point, the punchline would be self-awareness, certainly.
Finishing off here, what's one thing that you are specifically excited about in the future of the crypto industry? It could be a project, it could be a topic. I'm curious if there's anything that you're really excited about or keeping an eye on.
Ooh, fantastic question. Was not prepared to answer that. A lot of different ways. So, yeah, I think for me, and this has just kind of been my I guess professional ethos over the years, has really been about institutional adoption driving retail adoption. And I know there's always this chicken and egg debate. Like, if we get retail investors and retail users of NFTs and blockchain technology, do we get the big banks and the insurance companies? I've always just had just a different view. I've always thought, we get the big money to participate, to build the right things, and then we get users on the retail side really interested in embracing blockchain and crypto and NFT usage. So for me, it continues to be, hey, I want to see more banks. I want to see more brokers. I want to see regulation come down the pipeline. as scary as that sounds, or as crappy as that sounds, giving that clarity and guidance will allow NFT platforms. This whole Yuga Labs SEC story that dropped yesterday, right? From a slightly removed perspective, fascinating to watch. But as soon as we get clarity around those things, the more users will actually embrace and jump into the pool here. Again, spent 2 years slinging tax software, right? I still know that not a lot of people are reporting on their taxes and using the proper tools that they have in place, even though there are a dozen crypto tax calculators now, and a number of them are unicorns, right? And they rightfully should be. Is if the number of people are actually that are using crypto are really actually using the tools, reporting properly, that's all important. And getting people comfortable with it is really the most is the thing that I look forward to the most. I guess maybe to put a finer point on it, really like NFT adoption. I've been in NFTs. My main what we call it NFT wallet has been active since mid 2019. So it does somehow make me like a kind of older in the space in the NFT game, but I do think that has a ton of potential. So again, COVID unlocked a little bit of this foresight to me in terms of the metaverse, whatever that may mean to individuals. The other part though is just around digital flex and ownership. So my oldest daughter fell in love with Roblox during the time of COVID. Like spending, all of her allowance money and Robux money to buy digital dresses, guns for her games, but knowing that those are trapped on that platform, knowing that they're kind of centralized, is disturbing to me, right? And as I'm a recovering watch guy, so knowing that I'm going to spend my time at home, but I still want to flex on people, like having a nice PFP. Really, and having that provenance to prove out, hey, this isn't the Canal Street knockoff, it's the real deal. As silly as those kind of sound, we're all collectors at heart, right? Like those things really do mean things to people. As soon as we get, again, clarity, we get some kind of bigger companies jumping into the space that aren't going to rug us. I'm looking at UCNN. Then we're going to actually see real, true mainstream adoption. This is I think a real opportunity. I think crypto is still. It's still a teenager, right? But we're growing leaps and bounds, bear markets, bull markets. So really, I don't know, I'm rambling. All of it, but specifically, I think NFT adoption and real retail use cases will continue to shine through.
No, that's a great answer. And for anybody who's interested in maybe following you or the Giving Block, what's the best way to do so?
Oh, sure. So I guess I think I have the same handle really across all the social media platforms. So, at the Duke Kim, slowly building a Twitter following, nowhere near the size of yours, Rob, but I try my best.
Post more food.
Yeah, well, sir, if I cooked now. And then, again, I'm obviously active on LinkedIn as well. The Giving Block is at the Giving Block across all the social platforms as well. We're always looking to engage with donors, with projects, with organizations, looking to build, corporate social responsibility, looking to make an impact, or even integrating with us from a technical perspective. So really, always happy to have conversations and help bring more people into the world of crypto.
Awesome. I'll have links for that in the podcast description and the YouTube description for anybody who's interested in reaching out to Duke or the Giving Block. And Duke, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Rob. Have a great one.